So this morning, obviously, I am flying solo, so I'm going to give it a go. This past week, I was reading a very familiar story from the Bible. It's a story that you guys have probably read. It's a story about Peter walking on the water. Remember, the guys were caught in a storm. Jesus comes walking on the water. They think that he's a ghost. And Peter says, "If it is you, Lord, ask me to come and join you." And Jesus says, "Come." So he says, "Come." And so Peter does. He steps out. He's walking on the water, but as he looks at the wind and the waves, he gets scared. His faith kind of falters a bit. He starts to sink, and Jesus saves him. We've heard the story, but I want to pull a few things out of this that I hope are interesting and helpful to you. The first thing is this. It's in Matthew chapter 14. That's the story comes from. The first thing is this. In verse 22, it says this. Immediately after this, after Jesus had been teaching the crowds, Jesus insisted. He insisted. Another verse, it says, he compelled his disciples to get back into the boat and cross the other side of the lake while he sent the people home. Now, Jesus is the Son of God. Jesus knows everything. Jesus knows a storm is coming. And Jesus insists. He compels. He forces his followers, his disciples, to get into this boat knowing that they're going to sail into the middle of a storm. First point. Some storms are unavoidable. They can't avoid this. God actually wants them to go into the storm. Some things happen that we didn't choose. Some things happen that we didn't cause. Let me think. COVID. Some things happen that we hadn't anticipated. Some things aren't our fault. But those storms are at times unavoidable. And in the midst of that storm, in the midst of that process, God is able to teach us. So some storms are unavoidable. And then this, verse 23, after sending them, the crowd, home, this is Jesus, he went up into the hills by himself to pray. So follow the sequence. So he tells the crowds to go home. He insists that his disciples get into the boat and sail onto the lake in an impending storm. And then he goes up into the hillside to pray. Now, Sandra and I have been able to go to Israel I think 2 or 3 times. I hope you guys have a chance, or hope you do have a chance someday. It's really, really great to see the Holy Land, as it were. And we've been on the Sea of Galilee. We've been on fishing boats and sailed in the sea, which is so legit because that's the same sea that Jesus was on and taught around. And what we noticed was this. From the shore, on all sides of the Sea of Galilee, the hills ascend, and no matter where you are on the hillsides or around the lake, you can see down into the lake. Now, when Jesus' followers are on the lake in the storm, they can't see him, but he can see them. From wherever he is, he can see them. Wherever you are, he can see you. You might not be able to see Jesus. It might feel like he's not watching. It might feel like he's not there, but he is there and he's watching. So some storms are unavoidable, but Jesus is watching. And then, of course, it's in the middle of the night, like 3 a.m., and Jesus comes walking on the water. They think he's a ghost. And they're afraid. And then someone thinks, maybe it's Jesus. And Peter cries out, "If it's you, Lord, ask me to come." And Jesus says, "Come." So Peter, let's not diss him. He's the only guy that gets out of the boat. He steps over the side of the boat on the water, big step, and then he starts to walk. And hey, this is awesome. But then he starts to become full of fear. The fear is overtaking the faith because he looks at the wind, he looks at the waves, and he starts to sink. And here's what happens in verse 31. Jesus immediately reached out to Peter and grabbed him. Reached out to him and grabbed him. Immediately. There's no time lapse. There's no 5 seconds later, 10 seconds later, 30 seconds later. Immediately, Jesus grabbed him. And notice this, okay? So every week, the staff and I, we have a staff meeting together, prayer with the church. We have our chairs all socially distanced. And even at 6 feet, you try this with your family. Even at 6 feet, you can't reach out and grab them. They're too far away. 6 feet is too far away. 5 feet, 4 feet. You might even need to be like 2 feet away to actually reach out and grab somebody. So it's not like when Peter starts to sink, that Jesus is like 100 meters away, and he's got to come running on the waves. Jesus is right there, right beside Peter in the storm, right there beside Peter. When Peter starts to sink, Jesus is immediate in his response, and Jesus is right there. Whatever storm you might face, whether you're in one now or will be one next month or next year, this is 2020, hopefully 21 is better. Jesus is there, and his help is immediate, and his reach is close. You don't have to wait. He's not far away. He is right there for you. And then, of course, the end of the story is not about really what happened to Peter. It's not about faith. It's not about how to walk on water. It's not a how-to do that. What it really is a moment of worship. They recognize who he is and they worship, and they have a revelation that this is, in fact, the Son of God. And that's part of what happens in storms and things happen to us. We are called upon and our hearts are inclined to Jesus to recognize who he is and see the intervention that he can bring. So Jesus touches us. Jesus helps us. Jesus' presence is immediate, and Jesus reaches out and pulls us up. Some storms are unavoidable. Jesus is always watching, and Jesus is always there to help. Whatever you're going through something right now, keep that in mind, and remember this. Maybe next week if something comes along the way that you didn't expect. You guys are awesome. Great being with you this morning. Love and appreciate you guys. Have an awesome day.